Welcome. A very warm greetings to you all. Thank you for joining us again for another Pariyatti Presents event. My name is Briha Sarathi, and I'm here on behalf of Pariyatti as its Executive Director. We're grateful that you've all joined us today. For those of you who are not already familiar with Pariyatti, we're a non-profit charitable organization based in the USA. Our mission is to enrich the world by disseminating the words of the Buddha, providing sustenance for the seeker's journey, and illuminating the meditator's path. Pariyatti imports books from around the world, reprints books, publishes new titles, and converts existing material into digital formats. We protect and provide an enormous catalog of Dhamma resources in many languages and formats that otherwise would not be as easily available. We offer many free services, such as the Pariyatti Learning Center, the Treasures of Pariyatti, and daily words for inspiration via email, RSS feeds, and our mobile app. We offer most audio and video material, as well as many ebooks and audiobooks free of charge, including a large number of resources for students of SN Goenka. We also organize donation-based residential Pali workshops and facilitate pilgrimages for Vipassana meditators. For more information on Pariyatti, please visit our website at pariyatti.org. That's Pariyatti.org. Please note that in order to ensure a seamless experience for our audience, we've chosen to pre-record this interview with Corinne Bilyayev. The question and answer portion of this event will be live, and Kory will be responding to questions we receive during the event. So please feel free to send your questions via the chat feature in Zoom. You can send them to the user named Send Questions Here. So operating where empathy meets action, Corinne Bilyayev is a mother, educator, author, and musician who currently serves as an education supervisor for the Florida Department of Corrections. She holds a Master's of Arts in Linguistics and is completing a second Master's in Educational Leadership this fall. Her diverse work across homeless shelters, classrooms, memory care units, and the prison is a two-way street of hope and friendship. By meeting people exactly where they are, she's currently humbled and inspired by the resilience of individuals she walks alongside on the path. And interviewing Kory today is Kory Goldberg. Now, Kory has a PhD in Religious Studies from the University of Quebec in Montreal, Canada. He teaches ethics, critical thinking, religion, and sustainability at Champlain College in Saint-Lambert, Quebec. He co-authored Along the Path, The Meditator's Guide to Pilgrimage in the Buddha's Land, and he is the general editor of the Pariyatti Journal, as well as a Vipassana teacher in the tradition of SN Goenka. So, without further ado, I give you Kory and Kory.
Hi, Kory.
Good morning.
Yeah, nice to have you from one Kory to another. So yeah, I've been wanting to do this interview for some time now with you. We've been going back and forth trying to schedule it, so I'm really happy we found the time to do this. So let's start with how you came across Vipassana and where you sat and served your first courses.
So I was definitely sort of seeking for something, but I had no idea what. And I met my now husband, Constantine, just, I would say by coincidence, but I don't really think it was coincidence now. So I was teaching English at the local university, English to speakers of other languages, and his son was in my class. And a comment that his son made about we were just talking about morning routines as a way to practice their English skills. And his son volunteered the information that in the morning, my dad meditates and practices violin. And I said, oh, I'm a violin player and I am interested in meditation. And so he picked up on that and went home and told his dad, hey, you need to meet my teacher. And so we ended up meeting and talking, and I immediately could sense that there was something different about him, that I was like, wow, whatever that is, that's what I was looking for. And so the more we played violin together and started talking, he told me what Vipassana was, and I said, yes, that's what I want to do. And I went to Jessup and sat my first course at Southeast Vipassana Center back in 2018. So,
Okay, nice.
and yeah, my first service was there as well.
Okay, great. And I remember you saying that you have this demanding job as an educational supervisor in a prison. Can you tell us a little bit how you bring your meditation practice into your work?
I mean, on one hand, I don't go to the prison and meditate. So there's it's not like a direct bringing it in. But I will say that if I didn't meditate, I would not be able to continue working there. Or at least not successfully. There are so many potential pitfalls there, so many things that raise your agitation and try your patience and can, bring you to anger very quickly. So it's constantly going back to the breath and just being aware of what's going on and, oh, wow, this situation is really riling me up right now. How can I respond to this, or how can I de-escalate this? So always going back to being equanimous, and if you're not equanimous, at least being aware of the fact that you're not equanimous, so that you can kind of bring some awareness back to that and, okay, I need to do this, or I need to walk away, or I need to approach this a different way. And always kind of just to have the goal of keeping things harmonious and keeping things calm and beneficial, and constantly questioning, why am I here? What is my purpose here? My purpose is something good. My purpose is to create harmony and to bring, educational opportunities to the prison, which is generally like a pretty oppressive, not friendly place to be, but to try to be that other side of the coin, right? So while we're here, while we're in this environment, what good can we make out of it, right? What can we do here? And to really accept things as they are, and encourage the other people around me, whether that's staff or students, to also accept, this is where we are. Now that we're here, what are we going to do with it? And try to just take the best next step forward and maintain that equanimity throughout whatever might happen, because some pretty chaotic things can happen. So.
Sure. It sounds like that population is lucky to have somebody like you there. Have any prisoners expressed interest in meditation, or have you been involved with any prison courses?
I do serve on the prison trust, and we are actively seeking facilities to serve in. I was scheduled to serve at a youth center in Canada. It ended up being postponed, so I haven't actually served on a prison course yet, but I do hope to, and I'm definitely willing to. I have had some inmates reach out. I know there's a whole political thing about the vocabulary. Where I am, we do call them inmates. I know a lot of places call them residents, so I don't mean anything one way or another. That's just happens to be the vocabulary in my facility. So I have had some reach out, especially ones that are in solitary confinement, and ask for resources. So I've been able to kind of steer them towards some Buddhist texts, but other than sending them paperback books or, print out articles for them, there's really not much that I'm able to do in my capacity there. But there is some interest, and there is a lot of opportunity, I feel like, for them to have the time and space to really do a lot of inner work, because they have all that time. They're not rushing around to get to work, or there's a certain layer of not responsibility, but just kind of like daily obligations that is taken care of for them. So that sort of gives them more time that they could be doing some of this work if they had the opportunity. So I think they're, on some level, some of them are aware of that, and they would like that opportunity for sure.
Sure. Yeah. I guess just sharing resources, like, sharing literature and having conversations, and just being a positive presence are all, these are necessary first steps.
Right.
People. So that's great. That's great. You mentioned that the inspiration for your book came from Dhamma Kitchen conversations while you were serving a course. Do you remember the specific moment or conversation that made you realize these insights needed to be turned into a book?
I can't really remember a specific conversation. I was serving a lot that summer. I did a lot of part-time service, so I was working not in the prison. I was doing something else, and I just had a lot more short-term periods where I was able to go to the center, and so it was just consistent. Every time I went, I would meet new servers, and the conversation always went back to oh, do you practice? Or, oh, I'm trying to practice and I can't practice. And that was just, it seemed to be this constant theme among the servers, especially the newer servers. Like it was their, you know, they maybe sat one course and this was their first time serving. And everybody would always ask that question. How do you sit? Are you sitting? How do you sit? How are you making this happen? And I was like, wow, this is a really big question. This is a really big topic that just keeps coming up. So more than it being like one conversation that had a big impression on me, I think it was just the frequency of the topic. Like, wow, this is top of mind for everyone who's coming to serve.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they're concerned about. So I think that's where the need really hit me, is like, this is a pressing topic.
So once you knew that you wanted to write this book, what were the steps that you took in order to make it happen?
The first thing is that I guess the first thing is that I wrote it. So I just decided, this is what I need to say. I'm going to say it, and then we'll see where it goes. So I wrote the draft of the book. At the time, I was on the InReach committee for Dhammapatapa, and I shared it with some of the members of the InReach committee and just asked for their feedback. Like, is this right? Is this beneficial? Because I wasn't super confident that I had something worthwhile to put out there, you know, because you feel like, well, gosh, I'm not an arahant, I'm not anybody, I'm just somebody who happened to sit and serve some courses, and this is what I have to say. So if this is helpful, here you go. So I got a lot of positive feedback from them, and then there was a Ukrainian AT that I know through my husband, and so he read it, and he said, you know what, you really should talk to Bill Hart. So we had Bill Hart read a draft, and I had a video call with him, and we kind of went over some edits and some changes with him. And so that was really the first big step. And then when he kind of said, yes, this is, you know, this is okay, you can go ahead with this. Right. Then it's like, well, okay. So that kind of gave me a boost of like, yeah, this is something to pursue. But still, for years, I kind of sat on it. And then when we were at a Vipassana Prison Trust retreat up at Damodara, it happened to be during the Acharya meeting. And so that's when it was actually Constantine made some more contacts. And that's where we had a direct connection with Pariyatti, and it turned into what it is now. So I would encourage people to reach out. So I know Pariyatti has a journal and that you accept submissions. So I think that's something that is a good place for people to have their voice heard when they feel there's something to be said. It's important because there's so much that we can do to support and encourage each other, and anything to build that community, I feel is beneficial.
Yeah, that's it. I find that's one of the motivations behind the journal as well, is to build this community. There's, you know, people all around the world who are practicing in this one tradition, and so it's helpful when people can share and explore their ideas together, and it strengthens friendship, it strengthens community. Yeah, so glad you actually put this book together.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so you call your book Beyond Day 10, and you really focus on this period beyond Day 10 after the course, when a student faces maybe a challenging time. They've left the protective atmosphere of a meditation center, and then they go back home to their so-called mundane life. So was this a transition, or was this transition a significant hurdle for you in your own practice, especially after your first course or two?
Yeah, in some ways I had it a little bit easier than some people do, because my husband Constantine was already practicing and he was already established in his, you know, at least 2 hours a day sit. So I did have that at least as a role model, but participating in it is a whole different thing than just observing someone else who's doing it. So we did have young children in the house, as the book talks about, and I think that's what made it the most challenging for me, was getting the children on board with understanding that this isn't something that's taking me away from you. This is something that's helping me be more present with you. So like, if you give me this hour in the morning, I will give you the rest of the day, and it will all go much better. If I can do this, then the rest of the day will improve for everyone. And I think as they started to see those benefits, I think they did kind of pick up on that. But yeah, it's a huge change. If you have been just living your life the way you live your life every day, and then all of a sudden, you go away for 10 days, that's a big enough change to be away for 10 days, right? And then as soon as you come home, you try to do something new. Well, that's this big choom, right? No one is expecting this change because they didn't just go through the 10-day course that you went through. Yeah. So you come home and you're kind of coming from a different place now, and you're wanting to do something new. So I think that is a big hurdle that I face and that people face in general.
Mm-hmm. How old were your children when you did your first course?
I don't remember exactly, but I think the youngest was 7. So like 7, 9, 12, that age. So certainly old enough that they were able to entertain themselves for an hour. It's not like I was neglecting a crying infant or something like that. So that would have been obviously a different story. So, but it was more just of a behavioral change of like, okay, you need to, I just need this space for an hour. Kind of.
Yeah. And they understood that? They got that?
They did. They did. And like I explained in the book, they did open the door and peek, right? They wanted to know what I was doing and what it looked like and what it felt like. And so you have to, I guess, be patient with that too and allow their curiosity and invite them in and not just, no, this is not for you. This, you have to let them be curious and let them feel what it is and that it's actually beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Yeah, we were already sitting, my wife and I were already meditating when we had our children. So they just sort of grew up in that. But especially when my son was quite young, when we would meditate, he would just sit next to us, maybe for like 30 seconds or a minute. But so I like the way you said that. Like we also invited him into that space rather than keep it completely separate and
right.
So yeah, we invited him into that intimate, sacred space of ours, and so he'd get that. Yeah, I like how you talk about, these kind of in-house competitions, such as children, and in your section, like you call it real talk, and you discuss these topics like sleep and sex and children. So why else did you, besides children, like sleep and sexual intimacy, why did you want to address these specific topics, especially as these in-house competitions for meditation time?
Yeah, I guess reading other Dhamma books that I had read or articles online, things like that, I never really felt like those topics were addressed head on. And maybe it's also just because I bring a female perspective, but I feel like people talk about work or, things like that, but nobody was talking about family life. And that was not a topic that I found, anywhere when I was searching for support, right? I was like, well, nobody's talking about this. Yeah. And I remember driving home from a course and we were carpooling with another female meditator, and she was saying like, oh, like, I don't know what's going to happen when I get home. My husband hasn't sat, like he doesn't understand what I just went through, and he's going to have one thing on his mind, that I'm going to be in this completely different mental space. And we were like, yeah, nobody talks about that, but that's an issue, right? That's something that you have to deal with, especially this morning and evening time. Those are the times when families are close and when couples do have a chance to be together, right? Like before the alarm goes off in the morning, or, you finally get the kids to bed, you finally get everything done, and then you get to settle down. Well, okay, now I'm going to leave and go sit for an hour. What? People could take offense to that if you don't approach it in a proper way. And I just felt like I hadn't seen any conversations about that. I hadn't read anything that was relatable. So I wanted to put that out there. It's like, hey, this is a real thing, and we need to talk about this, because people need to understand that it's, I guess, on one hand, okay for it to come up, and then also just to kind of strategize what can you do? How can you make this work?
Yeah. That's one thing I appreciated about your book was that it's like a conversation
Mhm.
between sort of two friends. And so the reader and obviously you and the reader, you and the reader. Um, so it gives that sort of, that very personal touch that we don't always get. So yeah, good. I
Yeah,
also,
I think oh, sorry, I was
yeah,
just
go
going to
on.
say, I think it's because it did really come out of conversations. It did come out from a place of actual conversations. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, great. So you also share, coming back to kids for a moment, you share this very relatable story about your 7-year-old, coming into your room and unwrapping your meditation shawl while you're sitting. Um, how have you balanced these kinds of situations or maybe emergencies of childhood with the need for a disciplined routine?
Just for one, knowing what the need is. Like, is this an actual need? Is something actually wrong that I need to attend to? Okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to help you with whatever it is. Or is it just either curiosity or attention seeking, which in that particular case it was. But there's definitely situations even now, like I'm home alone with my father-in-law, and so if I'm sitting and I hear, oh, there's something going on that I need to attend to, I'm going to jump up and I'm going to go help. Um, so I think it's some flexibility too. Of, yes, I want to sit for an hour, and yes, I'm determined to do this, but I'm not going to be so inflexible that it's going to harm my relationships or physically endanger someone. So I think you have to be flexible. You have to be realistic about it. And like you said, yeah, I mean, you meditated with small children around, so there has to be some give and take. Um, it's not so legalistic of oh, I meditated for 59 minutes and 31 seconds, so I failed for the day. It's not like that. I mean, you're going to continue breathing while you go serve the child, right? While you go see what's wrong. You can bring that awareness to whatever you're attending to. So I
Yeah.
think just not being so legalistic about it is helpful.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's wise. I remember a teacher once gave us the advice when my wife first gave birth to our son, um, to be meditating and sending metta all the time when we were with our child, even while nursing, because it was
Mm-hmm.
hard when you have an infant, as you know, it's very hard to sit the regimented 2 hours a day. You do what you can in the beginning. And so even just while holding the child and the child is in your arms, or in my wife's case, nursing, their meditation is happening, especially metta is happening in those moments.
Right.
Um,
And yeah, if you look at it that way too, I think there was a lot of meditation probably going on before I ever sat the course, because there were so many hours when you're sitting there nursing, and like you have to be equanimous about that, and you're definitely giving yourself to someone else in service. So
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, when Goenkaji started this tradition, it was really a tradition meant for householders living, the family life when there's young people around, old people around for all aspects of family. Um, so you discussed the relationship between food and mental agitation, and you note that you can no longer feed yourself the way you used to. How has your diet directly influenced the quality of your meditation practice at home?
I guess it changes over time. It fluctuates from vegetarian to vegan and back again. Kind of depending on maybe how agitated I am, and how much time I have to prepare my food and think about it. Because it's easy to slip into distraction and being overwhelmed by other things, and then it's easier to just grab something that's maybe not as healthy or not as good. But I think it's a vicious cycle, and it can also be a positive cycle, right? So I would say that there's definitely daily variation, but when you're on a course and you're pretty open, you can definitely feel, oh, that meal was really heavy, or that meal was really spicy, or oh, that meal made me feel really light and really good. And so you can sense those differences. So if you pay attention to that, I think you can be just intentional, like, oh, I don't want to overeat. I don't want to feel heavy and lethargic. I want to be able to keep my energy and be able to focus. And so I think just being mindful about that. And I also think that it's very different for different people. So, for example, I'm a lot shorter and stockier, and my husband is super tall and thin, and our metabolisms are very different. And he likes to eat a lot at once. I like to sort of graze, and so there's different variations. So I don't want to say anything like too dogmatic about, oh, it should be like this or not like this, because I think there's a lot of variety. But I would say just to really try to be aware of how you're feeling and why you're eating, and are you eating because you're hungry and your body really needs some fuel right now, or are you eating because you're just like, your mind is going crazy and you're like, shoving food down your throat without even thinking about it, what it is, or tasting it, or why you're eating it. So I think just bringing awareness, no matter what it is that you're eating, to pay attention to that and what effects it's having on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Well said. Bringing mindfulness into every action that we're doing. So a challenge that many newer meditators face are conflicts with work schedules or maybe frequent travel, as you point out in the book. But however, you emphasize that mindset is more important than location. Can you share more about your experiences of meditating in less than ideal places? You talked about airports, and you even talked about having to meditate in a storage shed. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I know some people set up like a really nice meditation room in their house, and they have this very nice location. And that's great if you have that space, first of all, and if you can kind of dedicate that space. But I think, again, you don't want to get too tied to that. You don't want to be sort of stuck in your routine that if I can't sit in my nice, perfect spot, then it's either not going to go well or I'm not going to be able to do it. You have to be flexible. Again, I think that really is a theme here, is flexibility, right? And not being so legalistic about things. So if you're in an airport, there's people doing all sorts of crazy things. There's no reason you can't sit there with your eyes closed, and just observe what's going on around you. So you're still observing your sensations. You're observing what you hear and what you smell. And, maybe for personal safety, you need to open your eyes once in a while and see what's going on. But there's no reason that you can't just settle in and be aware wherever you happen to find yourself. And again, you can be tired. If you're traveling and you kind of doze off, well, okay, then you come back. Oh yeah, okay, I'm aware that I just dozed off. I guess I'm super sleepy right now, because that's what you're experiencing, right? And if that's what you're experiencing, that's what you're supposed to observe. So to I guess not have these expectations of, oh, I'm gonna experience Banga every day or something. Just really, you just need to go with what is happening in your life, and be okay with that. And yeah, I'm just sitting here observing this, and I'm trying not to freak out about the fact that this guy next to me is snoring or whatever, right? So again, I think flexibility and just acceptance and equanimity with the situation is important. So if I do have to travel or I do have to get up early, well, okay, I'm going to do the best I can, and maybe it's not perfect and beautiful, and that's just how it is today.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I like that. I really like that, non-rigid approach of yours. I like meditating in airports when I'm doing long distance travel. It helps pass the time as well. Yeah, and
Right.
also nice to practice metta to all these suffering people in the airport. And I have a friend who once told me he likes to go to public places, like he'll go meditate very discreetly, but he'll go to a shopping mall or in the library. Once he was talking about going to the recycling center, and he had to wait in line there and just meditating. So yeah, it's good to be able to, because eventually we want to be practicing 24 hours a day or all our waking hours. So
Right.
there's that flexibility. Yeah.
Right.
So you describe Sīla not just as a set of rules, but as a way to free your mind. And one of the more personal stories about Sīla in the book involves you returning a borrowed violin after 25 years to honor the
Mm-hmm.
precept of not taking what is not given, adinadana. So how did that specific act of ethical integrity affect your mental state on the cushion? Did you notice anything there?
Um, I mean, I guess I would say it's super subtle, right? Because it's it's not something that I like was really super, rolling in this thought or something, a lot, but it was just one of these things like when you're looking around and you're going like, what's a step in the right direction? This was a step in the right direction. And so when you kind of start at the grosser levels, right, and get more subtle as you go. And so I think it was just one of those things that like, okay, as I'm sweeping the floor, this is one of the things that needs to get swept out, right? This is one of the things that I need to deal with. And there was a lot of attachment there. I still, like, as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, my violin. But of course it's not my violin, and now, someone else is playing it, which is good. But yeah, you do, I think you kind of develop these attachments to physical objects, or at least I do. And that to me, I think was the harder side of that, more than like, oh, because I didn't actually steal it, right? Like I just sort of had it and then ended up not being able to return it, and it sort of fell off the radar. And so years later, I just still had it. But it was more of an attachment, like, well, now that I do have it and no one really is missing it, and now it's sort of mine and I've had it all these years. So giving that up, I think, was the bigger side of it. So to release that, I think, is freeing, because it's an attachment that you're just like, okay, I'm cutting ties. And the interesting thing is that since then, so in the beginning, I rented a really like terrible violin for a while. But since then, I've been loaned another one that's super nice, and at least the equivalent, if not better. So allowing that release of the attachment to the original one has opened me up to be able to receive something equivalent or better on very clear terms. So I think that's positive. So what the effect is for actually like sitting on the cushion, I would say that is probably pretty subtle, but all these things add up, right? All these straws that break the camel's back, like that was one straw and now it's gone. So
Nice.
yeah.
And the person who lent you the violin, did they lend it to you after they heard this story?
I mean, so someone else had loaned me a violin in the meantime, and then when I returned that one, and he realized, oh, that you really don't have a nice violin, then he said, well, I happen to have another one that's just sitting in my closet. So it wasn't this particular story, but he did know that I had given one up, and
And how did the university respond when you called them up 25 years later to give it their violin?
Yeah, I mean, they were pretty surprised because it was a different professor, so he didn't even know that this violin existed. I mean, there was no record of anything. So it was some new professor that I have never met. But I contacted them and sent it back, and he did write back and said, like, wow, like, thank you so much. This is in great condition, and we're really glad to have it. So yeah.
Great.
So.
Yeah, great. In the chapter on the 10 Pāramis, the 10 perfections, you suggest that if one's practice is struggling, you should reflect upon which perfection needs development. So I'm guessing this is something that you do. It's a nice idea. I haven't really heard too many people talk about that. So if it's not too personal to ask, is there any perfection that you're struggling with, or that you may have struggled with, and then reflecting on that really helped overcome that hurdle?
Oh, wow. I mean, all of them.
Or just one or two examples.
Yeah. Equanimity, of course, is a big one to work on. There's always things that throw me off. Then it's easy to get tangled up in, thinking about, oh, this should be this way or not this way, and really kind of accepting, well, okay, it's not that way though. So it's something that you're just going to have to sit with. And I guess that goes along with tolerance as well. that you have to just put up with the circumstances, but not put up with them in a way that is like creating aversion or agitation, but really accept them, tolerance in a very positive meaning of the word, right? So, and at that point, I think it's more acceptance. It's not even tolerance, right? It's accepting that this is really how things are. And I would say that goes back to my work in the prison. There's a lot of things there that are frankly intolerable, but you have to learn to accept them. And okay, if I'm going to function in this environment, this is something that I have to not only deal with, but approach it with compassion and a lot of understanding and a lot of equanimity and patience too, right? Like it's going to take a long time. It may never change, but I have to keep approaching it from a place of, again, like love is another one. So all of these things really come into play, because if you're going to keep going daily, day after day to this environment, you have to approach it with a calm, equanimous, balanced mind and just endless, I guess, metta and tolerance, whether it's for the inmate residents or the staff. A lot of the correctional staff, they're very angry, very agitated. And so to approach them and be able to communicate with them is really a practice as well. And kind of keep us all on the same page. Like, look, we're all in this environment. There's no us and them. We're all behind this fence together. We're all locked in this room together. How are we going to make the best of this? So to see when you're off balance in one of those, like if you start being really judgmental, or you start, oh no, it's this guy again. Oh my goodness, I don't want to deal with this, right? So you have to go back and reflect, like, oh, okay, where did my metta go? Oh geez, this is on me. I need to fix this, right? Or wow, I'm really not equanimous about this situation today. This is really throwing me off balance, and that's my problem, right? I need to fix that. So I think just going kind of through the list in your mind sometimes of the parami, and like, wow, okay, where am I failing right now? Oh, it's this one, right? I'm being super intolerant and, having a lot of aversion, wishing this situation would end, or this person would go away, or something like that, right? But I'm just learning to stay with it and make it your job to approach things from a better place over and over and over. So, and that applies equally when you're on the mat and you start beating yourself up for whatever thoughts you're having or things like that, right? So.
Yeah. And the flip side is true, is also to recognize when the positive qualities, the positive aspects of the perfections are present. We tend to focus so much on the negative, but it's also important to rejoice in the positive.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
You use Goenkaji's phrase, nothing special, in a way to describe when a student might feel frustrated that they're not achieving the same depth in their meditation practice at home as they did when they were on a course. So how have you reframed that frustration as a tool for progress rather than as a sign of failure? Like, how have you personally reframed it?
I think maybe to change the expectation of what your daily sit is about and what it's maybe going to feel like, or what it's going to bring to your life. If I sit just, on a random day of the week, a random time, I can't have that expectation of, oh, I'm going to have, these fully like wonderful open flows or whatever, no, you're probably not. You're probably like, your legs are going to hurt and you're going to fall asleep and your back is sore and whatever, right? So to just change your expectation of, nothing special is going to happen. It's still me. And all of this agitation and exhaustion and pain that I have is also going to show up on the mat, right? It's not going to miraculously disappear just because I sit down for an hour. So I think that nothing special is like, that's just how your day is going. It's going to continue when you go sit on the mat, right? Nothing special is going to happen. And the interesting thing is, today is actually Metta Day of the 30-day course, and I just got off the phone with Constantine, my husband, who sat that 30-day course. And of course, he had all of these kind of like special things going on because he was in a 30-day course. And I'm sitting here at home with all of the, the mundane things on my head, right? So it's very top of mind about the nothing special, right? Because he's having, all this, whatever just happened for him. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah. So I think not to have expectations. And again, sort of that acceptance of this is really what I'm observing is what's real for me right now. And sometimes it's one thing and sometimes it's not.
Nice. And you and your husband host a group sitting in your living room, as you point out in the book. What benefits have you seen from opening your home up to other meditators, and how has this possibly changed your living space?
So in the beginning, we did host it in our living room. Now it's actually in a bedroom that no one sleeps in, so it's a little more secluded. But in the beginning, like when all the kids were still living here and we did host it in the living room, I think it really did bring a lot of like positive energy to that space. And it also ensured that nothing unwholesome was going on there, right? Because that's one of the requirements of hosting group sits is that you can't, no one can drink alcohol and you can't have certain things going on in the space, right? So it just made the house kind of a lighter, more wholesome area, I think. And then when people meditate, you have all these great vibrations, right? And so it just feels like a good space. And now that we have it in the spare bedroom, I think that room sort of holds that a little better too, because there's not so much traffic and things like that in there. So I think it's really beneficial. It makes you kind of treat your house like more of a sacred space. So obviously there's lots of chaos that goes on here, and there's cats and things happen, but in general it does feel better. And it's great just to have the people over and be able to have that experience once a week too of a focused, committed group that's intent on following the path together. So.
Did you get a lot of people who come?
It's varied a lot. It's been down to 2, especially during COVID. It was really tough. But there was myself and one other guy who were like essential workers, and so we were exposed to the public all the time anyway. And so we decided let's just keep sitting together because we're around all these other people. It's not worse to be around each other. So we kept sitting. So it was down to 2 of us for a while, and then it's been up to I think 7. So it's never been like super huge, but we do have a core that's like pretty committed. So yeah, it's been very, very helpful actually to have that local group. So
yeah, and I guess you have regular sittings with your husband, so that also helps.
Right. That very much. I'm very spoiled.
Yeah, that helped me establish my practice. It took me 3 10-day courses to really get my and doing long-term service, and then fortunately after my long-term service is when I met my wife, and so that was a real boon. And now we try to have group sittings, but we live out in the country and it's hard. Not a lot of people come, but when I was in Montreal, living in Montreal, I had group sittings 3 nights a week. And that was really very selfish because that was also a way, after doing long-term service and before my wife and I got married, it was a way I was selfish because, people were coming to my place. So that really helped me motivate to sit. And once a week, it was just one person. Twice a week, we were maybe 3, 4. And then once a week, we were 7 or 8. And it was great. Yeah. It's great when people can open up their space to sit with others. It's so supportive.
Yeah, it really is supportive, and you just get kind of a little bit of positive peer pressure, and I think it's helpful. So
that's it. Yeah. You describe giving Dhamma service as a laboratory for learning how to practice while maintaining mundane responsibilities. And for you, how has serving a course differed from sitting a course in terms of establishing and maintaining a long-term home practice?
I think serving a course gives you kind of a more realistic perspective on how to integrate meditation into your daily life, right? Because when you're sitting a course, you know, people are cooking for you, and you're not doing any of the normal kind of daily tasks that you have to do, right? You don't have to worry about what's for lunch. You just show up and it's there and it's hot and it's perfect, right? So and you also don't have to talk to anybody. You don't have to deal with anybody. And if they talk to you, well, then they're breaking the rules, and you can give that to the teacher. Like, you don't have to deal with any of it, right? None of it is for you. You just have to deal with yourself. So when you're serving, though, you do have to talk to people, right? You do have to interact with them. You do have to find ways through whatever difficulties arise. And you have to follow the schedule, and you have to put in physical work, and you have to be tired. And, you have all these other kind of layers that you don't have when you're just sitting. And you also are eating more. So you might feel heavier, more lethargic, or whatever. So I think there's kind of a lot of opportunity to deal with all of that, like, outside agitation that comes. So when you're just sitting the course, you have all this internal stuff going on. But when you're serving, you kind of get a balance of both, right? Because you're sitting 3 hours a day, at least, right, with the group sits. So you do have some internal stuff coming up, but you also have, this person in the kitchen that's always bothering you. and you do have, oh my gosh, all the sink, the sink is still full of dishes, and I need to go back and clean all of that before I can rest. And so you have this extra layer that you need to face. And that is much more realistic, right? It's more similar to your daily life of, like, oh, I can't just zone out of all this stuff on my mind, right? You have to kind of keep it top of mind. You have to keep all these balls in the air to make sure that you're meeting your responsibilities and maintaining relationships and things like that. So I think service is super good, because when you're out in the real world, you don't have a support system either, right? Like, you're trying to sort of be good, like have right speech and do things correctly, but you don't have any support system. There's no one to go to at the end of the day and give you metta, right? And there's no one to ask questions. But when you're serving, you still have the structure of the course. So you have the teacher that you can talk to. You have the group settings. You have metta at the end of the day with the teacher and the other servers, and you can talk about all those things in a sort of guided Dhammic way. And so it's really a good workshop for that, so that when you do get out in the real world, you're like, oh yeah, I remember this certain thing happened when I was serving, and this is how we dealt with it. Maybe I can do that out here in the real world. And so it just gives you more tools and more experience in a supportive environment for how to handle real life situations that are going to come up when you are talking and interacting and trying to accomplish certain tasks during a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You compare sitting a 10-day course once a year to going to the dentist, while daily practice is like brushing your teeth. So if somebody who's listening to this interview is not brushing their teeth every day, what would be the first small step you would recommend they take to restart their own practice?
I mean, I hate giving advice on one hand, because everyone's situation is so different, and everyone's reasons for not sitting might be different. So it's hard to kind of give a blanket solution, but I would say probably a pretty universal thing is, like, beating yourself up about it. So if you're not sitting and you want to, I would forgive yourself first. Like, work on just being like, you know what? That was yesterday, and if I want to do something else today or tomorrow, I can do that too. I can do something different. I can start again. So I think my advice would be to let that go. Just, okay, you know what? I didn't succeed last time. Let me try again. Let me start over, and let me make this intention that, I'm going to set my alarm, and I'm not going to hit snooze 7 times. I'm going to actually get up and sit. Yeah. Right? And maybe set the alarm clock a little further from your bed, so you have to physically get up to turn off the noise. And just start again. So again, you can kind of identify in your personal situation what it is that you feel like might be the most important external obstacle, and try to deal with that directly. But But I think really the most important thing is forgiving yourself and just starting again. Whatever happened, that's the experience I had with this up until this point, and now from here on, I'm going to be more determined to make it happen.
Right. So is that what you had to do in your own situation?
So I did, after my first course, I did start sitting right away. And I've, there's been some days where like someone is sick or something happens, right? So I can't say it's been like 100% perfect, but yeah, I mean, when things come and go, yeah, you just have to start again. Or if you get interrupted and, okay, I sat half an hour this morning and that's all it's going to be because things move on. Okay. So maybe just make an extra intention to be more mindful during your next set of activities or during the day, right? So, okay, I didn't really get to sit this morning, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be aware now, right? And if anything, it can motivate you to be more aware, because sometimes I think it's easy to be like, oh, well, I sat for an hour. Now I can forget about that and just go live my life, right? So sometimes when you actually don't get to sit, then you're like, oh, I need to pay attention because I need to sort of like make up for that lack. And then you realize, wow, I should have been doing this all along.
Yeah.
So
the best is to sit and to be mindful during the day.
Right.
Yeah. Great. Is there anything that you would like to share or add that I haven't covered? Something from the book, some insight from the book, or the process that you underwent while writing the book? Anything else you'd like to share?
Oh gosh. So I guess it's all beneficial, whatever you're doing, in terms of sitting, serving, reflecting on sitting and serving, which actually writing the book and revising it was really beneficial for me to sort of think about all of these things again in a very much more structured way, because when you're sitting, you've got all this, stuff going on in your mind, right? But to actually write it and go, oh, okay, there are 10 of these, and there, to make sure that everything was structured and you actually get to think about each one, I think is really important. So I would say that reading Pariyatti has been super supportive, and listening to the chanting and understanding what is going on and why are we listening to these things, and what's behind all of this, I think it's helped me a lot. So yes, when you sit and you serve, you do experience it and you feel it, but it's also, at least for me, is kind of like, I mean, I'm in education, so I'm sort of I like to think about things and analyze things. So it's been helpful for me to understand, like, what are we really doing? What is this about? What are we getting free from? And why is this helpful? And why should I do this? And why should I follow this rule? And to sort of understand the reasoning behind it has been helpful for me. So yes, don't get caught up in vocabulary and text and understanding complicated poly words if you don't need to, but on the other hand, it can be helpful. So I would say do some investigation. If you sat a course and you're like, wow, that was cool, what was that? Well, start reading. You can find out what was that, and what's next maybe, and to be curious, I guess, about all of it, and not to judge yourself harshly about any of it, but just to really stay curious and keep searching.
Great. Thank you so much. So we have a few questions from the audience. Let's start with the first one here. It says, "Hi, Kory. Thanks for sharing your experience. And it's so nice that you're bringing your meditation practice to the workplace. I wanted to ask you how you deal with the situation when a student becomes hostile all of a sudden. Do you wait and look for your sensations and don't react at all? Or have you already developed so much equanimity that anger and agitation doesn't arise? Or are you able to suppress it at the moment?"
Wow. So
That's a tough one.
yeah, so I would say, do I wait and look for my sensations? I don't have to wait. They're there, right? They just come right up. So as far as being hostile, our students in the prison are really actually very I would say, not hostile towards us usually. They do get frustrated. So I'm not the teacher. I'm not in the classroom all the time. I come and go. I'm their supervisor. So generally, if a student has a situation and the teacher needs it escalated, they can bring them to me or send them to me. So there is a little gap already for that student because they've already maybe exploded on the teacher,
Yeah.
and then the teacher refers them to me. My first goal is to listen to them, to hear what's wrong, to hear why they're upset, and to really let them feel listened to. And once they know that you're listening, that in itself usually de-escalates them enough to the point where you can say, okay, maybe whatever is going on, I can't resolve this right this minute, but I will write it down. I will look into it. I will get back to you. And that, at least in our situation, is a pretty unusual thing, because they're used to being shouted at. They're used to being, put sort of shoved aside, right? Like your concerns don't matter or your opinions aren't valid. So just to validate, okay, I see that you're really upset right now. I see you're really frustrated. What can I do? What's the concern? So listening is the first thing. And there are some situations where I do feel scared or feel like, you kind of look around like, where's the escape? Where's the back door? And if you don't see one, you kind of realize I really need to be careful. I really need to have a lot of metta and a lot of de-escalation and patience here. So no, you don't want to suppress it. I've even had conversations where I'm like, okay, let's step outside and talk about this outside so that I know there's other eyes on me so that I'm not alone. So I think you need to always take steps to be safe and to be mindful of where you are and what your security situation is. But I'm just going back and I'm looking over the question again to make sure I covered all of it. But yeah, no, your job is to feel what you're feeling, and if you need to breathe and just let that, okay, wow, whew, here's this big wave, okay, let that go, and not react to it, not make things worse. So.
Great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So here's one that just came in. This student is saying they've been practicing for about a year, and they're finding that their motivation has faded, even though they've served a 10-day course. But this 10-day course, serving the course did not really help rekindle their practice, and they're meditating less and less, and asking questions like, what's the point? And so the person's getting very impatient and emotionally reactive. Is this something that you ever went through during your own journey? Did you find like you lost motivation? And if you did lose motivation, how did you, rekindle the energy?
I think on a pretty frequent basis, I can relate to this. It goes back to one, I think, not having expectations for your sits. So you're not going to become enlightened as soon as you might have originally thought. When I first taught my first course and I was like, okay, I'm all in, I get this, this is what I want. And then now several years later, you're like, wow, this was really slow.
Yeah.
But you do see the changes over time. And I think that's what the motivation becomes long term. Yes, I still want this goal, and I use this analogy a lot, that you have two ladders, right? One ladder has, say, 3 steps that are very far apart. And then the other ladder next to it has maybe 30 steps that are very close together. Which one is really going to help you get to the top? You need to take those very small steps on a constant basis, and that's how you move up. That's how you're going to get to the top. If you set the bar too high, you're just going to keep failing. You're never going to reach the next rung because it's too far away. So you need to be realistic about the small steps and about the incremental progress, and just go with that. And the fact that whoever this person is motivated enough to watch this video and to be present here and to be subscribed to Pariyatti, that tells me that they do have some understanding, I think, and some motivation and some desire to keep practicing. So please stay in it. And we have to just keep trying and keep coming back to the original purpose. Why did you sit the course? What were you hoping to get? You're hoping to get out of suffering. You're hoping to get out of these reactive patterns. And I haven't found a better way. So So that's why I would recommend and why I do keep going.
Yeah, great. Yeah, keep it limited to digestible bits. You know, well, sometimes striving for arhathood and after a first course can be a little bit intimidating. Yeah. So this person writes, I am a longtime meditator and also a Ukrainian American, and was happy to see that your book is available in Ukrainian. Can you talk about how that happened? And if possible, comment on the status of Vipassana in Ukraine. That's if you know that. I think it would be very helpful there, especially now, as well as for Ukrainian war refugees in the US.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my husband Konstantin is Ukrainian, and that's where that instant connection was made. So having it translated to Ukrainian was a pretty natural next step for us. I can comment just a tiny bit about Vipassana in Ukraine. I actually sat my first Satipatthana course in Ukraine, and that was a very memorable course. They are still holding courses there now during the war. So it is something that's available to them. They also hold children's courses, which I think are super important for, sort of guiding that next generation in the right direction. How war refugees in the U.S. Obviously, you can sit in the U.S. So the practice is available. Any metta that you send, any encouragement you provide to people who are in Ukraine and can't get out, any support to their courses, I think is all very worthwhile. So.
Mm-hmm. So This person writes, do you think that meditation can help ease the tensions of war and prevent it from happening? Maybe we can even just say war or just violence in general.
Yeah, 100%. So I remember when my kids were young, my son came to me and asked, like, why do we have wars? Why is that a thing? Like, why do we do that? And I said, well, and it just sort of came to me quickly. I said, you can't even get along with your sister. And he said, oh, right. So it has to start inside. The peace has to start in each individual. And that's something that the practice teaches, that you have to be at peace with yourself and that you have to create harmonious interactions with others. You can't just have expectations that all of these other people can do that when you're fighting with your little sister about, the bedroom. So it has to start with each one of us, and that's how we ease the tensions. Is you have to ease the tensions in your own mind and in your own home and heart first, and then that will spread.
Mm-hmm. Good. So the next question here is, you work in education with diverse populations, such as those who are homeless, incarcerated, and as a mom with children. What have you noticed about how human beings learn, regardless of their age and backgrounds?
I think so. I'm looking for a universal element here, right? People do learn. They might not learn what's on your lesson plan, but they're learning because they're paying attention to something. And you have to be careful because they might be paying attention to something that you're not paying attention to, right? So I think that the most important thing that you need to do, no matter what the situation is or what kind of classroom or what kind of audience you have, is you have to be open and aware of how you're feeling and what energy you're giving them so that they feel accepted, they feel safe, they feel like they're in a position where they can learn what you're actually trying to teach them in that situation. If you impose yourself in a harsh or condescending kind of way, then I feel like that just builds a barrier. So always listening, always being open, having a firm expectation of what we're doing and how this place is going to run, and we're going to run in a safe manner, and we're going to try to create harmony for everybody in the room. And that's what you need to contribute to first and foremost, because no one's going to learn if they don't feel safe. No one's going to learn if they feel attacked. So always creating that basis first of, hey, this is a different kind of space. We're doing something else here. This is with your kids, like this is your home, so you need to feel safe here. Or in the classroom, in the prison, yes, this is a prison, but this is our classroom, and in this classroom we do X, Y, Z, and just setting that baseline and giving them the opportunity to open up a little more and feel like they can take risks there.
Mm-hmm. Can you maybe give us some examples of how you create a safe space in the different milieus that you've worked?
Again, I would say listening. You have to listen. You have to take their opinions into account. We had a really agitated student who wouldn't do any of the work that the teacher was giving him. He just kept saying, I don't need to be here. I already did this. I already did this course. Like my paperwork is messed up kind of thing. And he just kept shoving it back at the teacher. I'm not going to do this math assignment because whatever situation. So I had to pull him out and talk to him and just let him lay out all the paperwork that he had, let him explain, he had been transferred in from a different facility and maybe there were some discrepancies. And so I just gave him the chance to say what he needed to say and get it off his chest, because she kept trying to tell him, be quiet, we need to do the lesson. But until he felt listened to, he wasn't going to let it go. And so sometimes you have to step back from your goal of, we need to finish this algebra lesson. You have to let the person get it off their chest. So I feel like I got off track. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but
Yeah, well, the question was about creating a safe space. Like, so what are different ways in which you do that? And so you said the main way is by deeply listening to the people that you're working with, whether it's children or homeless or incarcerated people.
Yeah, and also if you can't do it in the moment, to let them know that you will do it. So right now I have a group of 20 people in the room and we need to do this. But afterwards, please come see me, or, tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'll call you out or something like that, so that they know, okay, she can't do it right this minute, because a lot of times you can't do it right that minute, and that's okay too. But just to let them know that you will.
Yeah, to let them know that they're not going to fall through the cracks.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
good. And so I think deep listening is really interesting. How has Vipassana helped you become a better listener? Has your meditation practice had that effect on you?
Yeah, because if you're less reactive, you can create the space to be silent and to let them talk. So you might start having ideas of, oh, this guy's crazy, or oh, all of his paperwork is wrong, or you might start having all this stuff, but don't say it. Just let them keep going. Don't react. And you can observe all this, and it also gives you the space to change your mind. Because if you open your mouth too soon and maybe say something contrary, and then you realize, oh, well, maybe he's right, but you've already made him more angry by then because you jumped in too quickly. So I think being less reactive and just learning how to breathe, learning how to be patient, and okay, this is taking a super long time, but it's worth it in the end, because when they finally run out of gas, now you have all their information. Now you can put it together in a some kind of picture that makes sense and explain it back to them. Okay, this is what I think we should do next. And they're like, wow, okay, sure, let's do that. Or you can say, I don't think this is going to work because of X, Y, Z, but I will make note of it. I will, escalate it to the next level or something like that. So I think the practice gives you a lot more space and a lot more patience.
Yeah. And if you do find yourself in a situation where you've said the wrong thing and maybe you frustrated somebody or hurt them, has your practice helped you be more sensitive to that and maybe apologize more readily or more quickly?
Yeah, I think so. And to not be so, I guess, egoic or afraid to say, oh, you know what, I really made a mess of that situation, or I'm sorry that didn't go well. I had a situation like that with a couple of my teachers where they had gotten in an argument about something, and the way I resolved it, I think, made it worse. And so then as we kept going, I said, you know what, yeah, we all had a part in that. I had a part in that too, and I'm sorry, and let's go back and, do this a different way. So yeah, the practice helps you for sure.
Yeah. So this person leaves a nice comment. It's not a question, but I'll share it with you because it's nice. And the person writes, "Thank you for this moment of peace. It helps us to stay in the present moment despite all the madness, injustice, and impunity of those responsible." So I just wanted to share that with you. And another person asks, how long did it take you to finish the book?
Um, Wow, a long time. So I kind of wrote it fairly, not quickly, but over a matter of probably a few months in the beginning. But it actually had it had another section, which I eventually decided to remove. And it had quite a bit of editing that it went through in terms of streamlining and just making sure that it was kind of the most universal that it could be. And then it sat on the shelf for years and years. and I was sort of okay with that too, because I didn't want to force anything. I just wanted it to be, you know, at the time I needed to write it because I felt inspired to write it, and I thought, okay, this is important, and if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere. And then for many years it didn't, and then at some point it it became, it just seemed like it was time. The time ripened, I guess. So overall, I think it was about 6 years from start to publication.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's like a PhD thesis.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one more I can ask here. It's about doubt. Um, has this, the person writes, thanks, Cory and Kory. Was there a particular point where you said, I see what's going on here, and that grounded me to the meditation, and as what Goenkaji might say, getting rid of the doubts? So was there a moment where you felt just confident that this was the practice for you, and you were going to commit to it?
Yeah, I would say there were maybe a couple of times when I felt like that. The first time was when I first heard about the course before I even knew anything at all about it. I was talking to Constantine, and he mentioned what he did for meditation. I said, "Oh, like it was like ding, yes, I'm doing that. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to this course." So that was the first time, and then when I did get to the course and I was sitting there and hurting, and my first AT will tell you crying and complaining like I can't do this anymore. Um, but about day 6, I had another one of those moments of no, this is right. This is like put the blinders on. This is it. And then again, I would say during the 20-day course, I had another experience of like, yeah, there's no alternative. There's no going back. So
Mm.
yeah.
Mhm.
So
Nice.
it's sort of a cycle, right?
Yeah.
Things go around and around. You feel maybe more confident at sometimes than others, but just having that one spark is enough to keep things going.
Good. Yeah. So there is one more question that came in, and I think it's worth asking.
Mhm.
The person writes, as off as this sounds, do you see any advantage of being incarcerated and being able to practice more, as meditating in the quote unquote real world can be a real challenge?
That's a tricky question. I will say yes, because I have read several stories, like biographies or I guess autobiographies of people in prisons who say that it's a good place for them to meditate. I'm also friends with someone whose first course was in Tihar jail in India, and he sat there, and it was, it was beneficial. Like I said earlier, when you're in the real world, you have all these obligations and responsibilities and things that are coming at you all the time, so it can be hard. But if you are able to use the time in prison, then I think it could be a very good place, but it's also extremely difficult because it's extremely noisy, it's extremely oppressive, very unsupportive in terms of just the vibrations that are going on there. But if you can really have that determination, like extremely strong determination, I think it can be a beneficial place. It's also good because it's a place where people hit bottom because they've suffered so much that they are sincerely looking for alternatives. And I think sometimes people in the mundane world, they have just enough pleasure that they're kind of okay. They don't really put in that much effort. But if somebody really truly hits bottom, then I think it can be beneficial.
Yeah. And I guess we're also assuming that the person who's incarcerated is a meditator or has access to meditation. Because if that's not the case, then it wouldn't make sense. I remember when I I served a 10-day course at the minimum security facility in Seattle at NERF many years ago. And one guy left on day 9 saying I get the practice, I did the Anapana, I did the Vipassana, I know what it's all about. I love it, but I just don't feel like being in this group anymore. I'm just going to go practice in my cell, in my room. And the teacher said, well, if once you leave, you can't come back in. You know that. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. And he walked out the door, and 2 minutes later, he came back knocking on the door of the meditation area, begging to come back in. But it wasn't possible at that point. Like he encountered all that noise that you just described. Yeah. I'm curious if he ever did come back. Once he was released, I'm curious if he went for a course or not. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a couple more questions that came in. So this person says, Hi both. Thank you. I would like to know, Kory, I think it's you. At what moment did you start to sit definitively twice a day where there was no returning to skipping, not even a little bit in the morning or evening?
In my personal experience, I started sitting right away. So as soon as we came home from the course, we sat that evening, and that was it. We were determined. So like I said, my husband already had his practice established, and then I just decided to join him. So
yeah, great. So this person writes or asks, I would like to translate the book into my native language, Malayalam, and publish it with Pariyatti. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible, but don't ask Kory. Please send an email to publisher@pariyatti.org. So that's publisher, PUBLISEHER, publisher@pariyatti.org. Malayalam. Yeah, that's also a palindrome I'm recognizing as I read the word. So anyways, thank you so much for writing your book, Kory, and for taking the time to join us on this beautiful sunny Sunday morning. At least here it's sunny. It's 25 degrees Celsius, which is about 77 in your language. So this has really been a nice conversation, and I'm sure everyone who's been listening today, or maybe will listen in the future, really benefited, and I'm sure they're deeply grateful for all the insights that you shared and your generosity, and just doing all the good work that you do. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and I hope it's beneficial. So thank Dhamma, and thank you for doing this.
Great.
So thank you so much, Kory and Kory, for joining us today. On behalf of Pariyatti, I would like to thank you all for attending this event. When you leave this meeting, you'll be presented with an opportunity to fill out a short post-event survey. The link to the same survey will be posted in the Zoom chat box. So if you have a few moments, we would appreciate your feedback. Thank you.